I'm Nicholas Penrake, and you're listening to A Trader's Life, the podcast where I get to talk to successful traders about their approach to trading, how they started out and went from broke or breaking even to pulling in thousands of dollars a week. Trading is a tough game. They say only around 5% of those who try actually make a profit. Join me for A Trader's Life to glean some valuable insights from the market wizards I get to talk to. I have with me on the show today Karl Dean, founder and equity Forex trader at Dark Pool Trading. Hey, Karl, how's it going?
Great, Nick. Thanks.
So I wanted to start off with early experiences and find out a little bit how you got into trading in the first place. What drew you to it?
I think it started, I was actually still in school and I worked part-time for Home Depot, and they had an employee stock purchasing plan. You know, it was quite neat the way they set it up, your beginning day and ending day of the 1 year plan. You would get the stock at its lowest trading price on whichever day it happened to be, minus 20%. And I remember the stock on the opening day of the plan was trading at around $20, I think. And on the closing day, it was trading at $44. So for that plan, I got those shares that I'd put away for all year at $20 minus their 20% discount. And I sold them quite quickly after that. And I thought, this is easiest money I'd ever made. And then I thought, well, can I keep going on this? And that was sort of the seed that planted, and it was, sort of went from there.
Yeah. Okay. Did you know anything at all about what you were doing at the outset? I mean, did you feel that was sort of just beginner's luck, had you read about the markets, done some research?
Not at that point in time, no. I was still quite young in my very early 20s, and it was all managed by Home Depot's company that managed their employee stock purchase plan. And after that, I started to look into it a little bit, but I still didn't know where I was going. And I took I started my accounting degree, and that there just didn't seem to be enough money, especially at the beginning in that. So I was kind of lost, I suppose, at that point. And I knew I wanted to learn more about the trading, but the starting capital was always a bit of a problem. So
yeah.
I kind of switched from accounting into engineering. Calgary was a fairly big oil and gas hub, and there were lots of jobs and very well paying jobs. So that's where I went to, and started a career there. And a lot of the guys that I worked with were trading as well, and I sort of got into it from there, and looked around for some online courses and took some online courses, and very slowly started to try to figure it out.
Yeah. And what were you trading at the outset?
Most of what I was trading were just very small stocks, usually under $5. Because again, I think my first trading account that I opened had $1,000 in it, and it's not a lot. And I started doing penny stocks, and really flying by the seat of my pants. I didn't really know a lot about it, and the courses and the research that I did on the internet was usually a hit and a miss. And you could read about it, but trying to take it from book to practice, I found kind of difficult. So we were all sort of just guessing.
Yeah. So these guys you who were also trading, did you sort of get together as a group and chat things through and help each other?
Usually during the workday, we didn't, sort of trade together. It was more, we'd sit around and have coffee and say, oh, well, this is what I bought and it didn't work and I lost money. And, this is, we bought this one and it made a little bit of money, but, we were still young and excited. So There was always hope.
Yeah. Did you do Forex at the same time or just
No,
stocks?
I didn't start doing Forex until much, much later.
Yeah. Okay. Did it seem a bit scary at the beginning? Or is it you just felt drawn to trade stock?
I've always traded stocks. The Forex market, I trade because um, the regular market's not open anymore. But again, I would have to say about 95% of my trades are all in equities.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So how long was it before you went from, sort of breaking even or making just small profits to something you felt you could possibly live on?
Geez, it must have been
A few years.
about 4 years, give or take.
Yeah,
Um, to go from um, trading part time to actually replacing a salary, I find for a lot of people is a fairly big jump.
yeah,
Um, because as soon as you start that, you're now bringing the emotions into the trading.
yeah. Because if you don't make the money, it's scary, isn't it?
It
You
is,
don't
yeah,
have a job. Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And what about those times you had heavy losses? I mean, pretty much every trader has those sort of bad runs, where you sort of feel you're losing your edge, or you just feel you're just interpreting the market badly. Uh, how did you sort of get through those difficult periods?
I think for the most part, I log my trades. I log every trade, and if I have more than 4 or 5 bad trades in a row, then I'll stop, and then I'll go back and I'll reevaluate.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. What was
in
wrong with the
depth,
strategy?
yeah, yeah. And then I'll go back through all the charts and say, well, what am I doing? Am I breaking my rules? Why did I lose? Um, and stuff like that. But I take risk management very seriously. I have my projected loss per trade, and I stick to that.
Yeah. What kind of preparation or research do you do prior to taking a trade?
So usually I will look at the market the night before, and I will, usually I research using Nasdaq or um, the trading platform I use, and I look for the biggest gainers and losers of the day. So I do that the night before, and it doesn't take me very long, half an hour or so. And then I pick out the biggest gainers and losers, and I create a watch list, and then I do the same thing pre-market in the morning, and then I just look for good chart patterns, good entry signals, or good shorting signals, and then I go from there.
And when you say signals, what gives you the signal? Is it a certain kind of indicator, a set of indicators? Are you looking at like MACDs and EMAs, moving averages? Is it a combination of those?
A little bit, yeah. Um, but I usually look for abnormal price action, abnormal volume,
Okay.
and then usually a break from um, resistance.
Yeah. Okay. So spike in volume or drop in volume, that kind of thing.
You bet. Yeah.
Yeah. And what indicators would you use to measure that?
Well, I have some custom indicators that I use on my trading platform,
Okay.
and it looks for chart patterns and then um, candlesticks, certain types of candlesticks.
You had those made for you, or
Yes, so I have a set criteria that I look for, and it's really just an increase in price action, an increase in volume. That's different from the last couple of trading periods.
yeah, yeah. And so you're looking at daily charts, I guess, mostly, or 4 hour.
For the initial, yeah, and then I trade off of um,
Smaller time
a
frame.
2 minute chart. Yeah,
Yeah. Cool. Yeah. Do you find different markets behave quite differently? Say Forex versus stocks or
I
commodities?
I do, but I also find that the technical analysis that we do tends to be able to be used on multiple markets.
Yeah.
But for the most part, I trade NASDAQ stocks. I do some up in, the TSX and some on the New York Stock Exchange, but the bulk of my trading is all on the NASDAQ market.
Yeah. And with NASDAQ, I mean, what do you make of what is going on? I mean, the volatility has become more and more crazy, you might say, over the last 3 months. How do you sort of cope with that really sharp up and down? Obviously, that's not every single stock on NASDAQ. Some are stronger than others, but it is a more perilous time, surely. How do you sort of insure yourself against a sudden drop, or if you're shorting it, you get it wrong and it's suddenly going up?
Well, the best thing is to, like I have my set rules for where I'm putting my stop losses, and I just adhere to that. The volatility in the market, for me anyway, and the way I trade, is fantastic.
Okay.
It brings about a lot more opportunities, especially when the market moves so wildly. You're not, or I'm not looking to, buy at the bottom and sell at the top. But if I can take a small chunk of that move, I find it a little less risky, and I can make my money and move on. Or, if the trade goes against me, I cut my losses really, really quick, so that you preserve your capital and you can trade another day.
Yeah, yeah. So how tight do you keep your stop loss? Is it because, I mean, stocks seem to swing more than, say, forex in a shorter period of time generally, don't they?
They do, yeah.
Yeah. So do you keep it very tight? And I suppose there's always the risk you're going to be stopped out quickly, but
Yeah, for the most part, it's fairly tight.
Mm.
I don't. It depends on where I place my support and resistance on a particular stock. But I try to get in as early as I can. And if I miss the mark, I don't chase trades, because you can run into problems where you're that far away, so your risk gap is a lot bigger.
Yeah. Do you sometimes go back in right after you get out, or you just sort of back off if you think the analysis isn't gone according to plan?
Yeah. So if I get another entry signal, um, then yeah, I can go in again. But I don't second guess. Those are my rules. Um, if I make a mistake, I've made the mistake, and I move on.
Yeah. And so do you pretty much always pick a point where you will get out?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
And you stick to that pretty
I do.
with a
Yeah.
certain amount of discipline. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Do you focus? I mean, the Nasdaq, of course, is mainly tech. I mean, do you look at other stocks as well?
Yeah. I mean, I trade the New York Stock Exchange, and I do sometimes trade the OTC as well.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And do you use fundamental analysis in forming your trade
No,
decisions, or trade? No, you don't know. You
no,
leave that
I
out.
don't. And funny enough, having that background in accounting, in the first couple of years, they they teach you how to, look at a company, and you look at its spreadsheets, and so on and so forth. And I just don't. I
Yeah.
find it
Okay.
takes an awful lot of time.
Yeah.
So, a lot of the times, I've had stocks that I couldn't even tell you what the company does.
Yeah.
It's all based on, what the chart's telling me, and, you know, stuff like that.
Yeah. 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 Moving on to a slightly different topic. I mean, when you have had uh, bad runs, or happens to pretty much most traders, how do you deal with the stress? I mean, do you actually just back off for a week, do something completely different?
Yep.
Yeah, you'll do
Yeah. I
that
mean, I'll
sometimes.
take a break, or um, I'll do something. I'll do something else. I'll spend time with my family. I have other projects on the go as well, so I have that ability to take the break, and it keeps my head level.
Yeah, yeah. And how do your family cope with the trading lifestyle that you lead? Are they
They
sort
love
of
it.
interested?
They love it. I mean, I get to spend a lot more time. When I was working in engineering, it was very long days, 12-hour days, and I was away from the house.
Yeah,
Um, now with the way I do things, I still have um, friends and colleagues in engineering. So, I usually trade, and, sometimes I can help out on, engineering projects as well, if it fits my timeline.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So you're basically working from home, aren't you?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Was that one of the things that drew you to it? That sort of freedom and independence, and the fact you didn't have to sort of get involved with office politics, any of that sort of thing.
It did. The first couple of times that I did it, I struggled with it. I struggled with being out of the office. I'd been in the office for so long, and I think I'm a fairly social person. So I really enjoy the talking to people and the getting together, and
Yeah,
so on and so forth. So the first time I traded from home by myself, I found it really difficult.
yeah, sort of lonely, basically.
It is. It's
Yeah,
it's very lonely, or
yeah,
it can be. Yeah.
yeah. Especially if things are not going too well, right? I mean, it's
Yes.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Anyway, I mean, talking about the social side of things, you were telling me earlier that you also teach. Tell me a bit about your mentoring.
I do now. So I've always enjoyed teaching and helping people. At a young age, I had started scuba diving when I was 16, I think. I grew up in Cape Town in South Africa, and then
Yeah,
moved to Canada when I was 9 or 10. And I always enjoyed the water. In Africa, I was always in the water. So I thought it was a natural transition to get into scuba diving here. And then I started teaching, which is funny because that's how I met my wife. I was her scuba instructor.
yeah,
So I always enjoyed teaching. And even when I was in engineering, I took on a role which allowed me to help other people learn the software and help with software, and help. So I've always done that. And then with trading, for the longest time, it's an activity where you're always taking, you're not really giving back. And in the oil and gas industry, in engineering in Calgary, it was an up and down market. It was feast or famine. And I watched a lot of people that didn't have the trading on the side like I did. They would get laid off, and they would get stressed out, and they couldn't make payments, and it was horrible. And so I started helping people out, saying, why don't you try this, and I'll help you out. And I
yeah,
did that for a long time, just helping people out. It wasn't an official course or anything like that. I just helped people out, and I loved it. And I would trade, and do other things, and help people out, and I got a lot of satisfaction out of that. I felt like I was giving back. Um,
yeah,
so just recently, I've sort of made the course official. We're in the final stages, and I've got a couple of students, that have gone through the initial course, and they love it, and I love the teaching portion of it. So that's kind of how I got into it.
yeah. So how do you teach? Do you teach like one to one by Zoom or
Yeah,
through a course of videos or
yeah.
yeah,
So
one to one?
because I haven't been doing it officially that long. I haven't put together a whole pile of videos yet. It's on
Hmm.
sort of a very long to-do list that I have. But there is a book, and I will be sending the book out. At the moment, it's in PDF sections. So
Yeah.
it's a one-on-one Skype meeting that I have with the students each week, and we go over, what they learned in the market, and there's weekly assignments and all of that, and then there's a couple of strategies that they can implement on their own, and then they have access. They can send me emails all week long, or they send me messages on Skype, and then I respond to them, during that day sometime.
Yeah. And do you run a small, like a Telegram group and Facebook page, that sort of thing as well? Or
I do have a Facebook page. I'm just sort of putting together a weekly podcast as well, and yeah, so all of those things are sort of coming together.
Yeah.
So that we do have all of those.
Yeah. And when you compare the students you've had, or even just buddies you've tried to help, what do you think are the distinguishing traits that you identify among those who have been successful? Who pulled through and not sort of given up and thought, I can't make this work. What do you think stands out for you? You look at a buddy who you gave some tips to, and he came through and it worked, and then another one really struggled and it just didn't work. I mean, we're not all born to be traders, of course. So I'm just curious to know if there's any kind of traits that you identified that made a good trader. There aren't many of them. Yeah.
Right. I think attitude's the big one.
Okay.
Your willingness to keep trying.
Yeah, perseverance. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. A lot of people out there, and people that I've talked to, and if they think they're going to get rich overnight, they're not going to last, because they get frustrated when it doesn't work. I think the easiest way to do it is to start when you have a full-time job, and only because in my opinion, the reason why people that try trading don't work out is because of the emotional side of it. We're all emotionally attached to our money, and we struggle taking a loss. So if you can take that dependence on trading income to pay bills, if you can take that out of the equation, I think you'll be a lot more successful.
Yeah, it does take some stress off, doesn't it? I mean,
it does.
There are so many people who, not been able to work during this pandemic period, and they've turned to trading as a way of making money, and keeping themselves occupied. But of course, when you start out, mostly you're losing. I mean, pretty much everyone I've spoken to has taken 1 to 2 years at least to start making enough money so they could even contemplate being a trader full time.
Yeah.
That's, it's typical of most business, isn't it? We all know, your first year you make a loss. It's a learning process, it's a building process.
It is.
But if you're doing that when you're unemployed or just no money coming in, that's kind of scary.
It is. Yeah. It's really hard to do it that way.
Yeah. And then when you're scared, you start making mistakes, you panic, and you as you say, you run with your emotions, which is only going to get you burnt.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. So, where would we find your mentorship program if anyone here is listening and keen to find a mentor?
So the easiest way to probably find me is going to be on karldean.ca.
Yeah.
And then there'll be a bit about me, and there should be links on there to the course.
Okay.
And then you can also find me on LinkedIn as well.
Yeah.
I use that quite a lot.
Yeah. That's how we got to meet, isn't it? Yeah.
It is, yes.
It is. Good. Well, I'm going to wrap it up there, Karl. Thanks very much for talking to me. And
you're very welcome.
wish you all the best with the mentorship program.
Oh, thank you so much.
Yeah, cool. All right. Bye.
Bye now.
I was talking just now to Karl Dean, an equities trader based in Canada. I'm Nicholas Penrake, and you've been listening to A Trader's Life. Thanks for joining us.